Today, we're going to figure out the best way to freeze fresh basil. Now, my preferred method has always been to just put it in ice cube trays, cover it with olive oil, and freeze it. And while that works great, it does use a lot of olive oil. I mean, several liters, depending on how much basil you're going to preserve. So I thought it would be a fun little challenge to see if there is another way that is even better and maybe faster, a little bit cheaper than olive oil. So we're going to do basil frozen in 3 different ways, one of which is going to be just dried leaves into a bag. The second way is going to be tossing the leaves with a little bit of olive oil just to coat them, again, freezing them in a bag. And then the third way is going to be tossing them in water and freezing them in a bag as well. Now, I have my hypothesis. I'll keep it to myself and wait and see until the experiment is done. But I thought this would be a really fun little test and challenge in a way that would freeze basil really fast. When you're to the end of the season, you've made the pesto and the pizza and all the caprese salads you could possibly eat, and you're just ready for that basil to be gone. Let's try it. Okay, so now we have done all 3. One is air dried in a freeze bag, and I've pushed out delicately as much air as I could. The next is tossed in a little bit of oil, less than a couple tablespoons. And then the third is tossed in water, and all with air pushed out as much as they can, because we know heat, light, and air are some of the 3 top ways that food deteriorates. Now, there are bioactives in basil that when fresh, they are really volatile, but when they are exposed to cold, it actually reduces those VOCs. And so the thing that we love about basil is that fresh smell. And that's really where it starts, the aroma. When those VOCs, the volatile compounds, are reduced, then the overall smell is reduced too. And so that really is the differentiating factor between fresh basil and dried basil to me. It's one of those herbs that I really, really prefer to be fresh. There are times when it needs to be dried, but I thought this would be a good way. Let's see just how much these 3 different methods will reduce the overall oxidation to those VOCs we want to reduce that as much as we can to maintain that vibrant smell that we so love about basil. Okay, we are back. It's the next day after I have frozen my basil. Now remember, we have the basil in water, basil with just air, and basil tossed with a little bit of olive oil. My favorite way has always been to freeze basil in ice cube trays, but I thought I would test this method out. So in the basil tossed with water, you can see the leaves, number 1, are very brittle. I was barely pulling it out of the freezer, and I crunched a couple of the leaves. So depending on the way you want the leaves to look, if you want them to be whole, water tossing is not the way to go. You also notice there's a fair amount of darkening of the leaves, and that is the oxidation with the water there. Now, again, same thing happened with just air. There's darkening of these leaves in the perimeter, which I would suspect is maybe more due to the fact that there's more air on the outside. These ones, the cells of the plant will rupture when they get really cold, and then oxidation happens. So this is sort of what I expected. And actually this one fared a little bit better than I expected. Now, this is the basil that was tossed in just a little bit of oil. Recall that my only downside of freezing basil in ice cube trays is the amount of olive oil that you have to use. So this seemed like a close second to me. If your concern is the amount of olive oil that you have to use in order to preserve all of your basil, then by all means, I think that this way of tossing basil leaves in oil and then bagging it is a close second. But I still stand behind my favorite way to preserve olive oil is in cubes. Excuse me. My favorite way to preserve basil is in cubes of olive oil. They look great. You still get some minimal darkening, but they look great, and they're a really easy way to use the leaf. Now, when I have froze herbs in bags like this before, what I find is that, like I said, the leaves get so brittle, you're pulling them out of the bags, and they just don't look appealing when the time comes to consume the food. So I'd love to know what your favorite way is to preserve basil, or if you also love ice cube trays, then show me a photo of yours. Thanks again.